I've cleaned office buildings for 15 years, but nothing, not the endless nights, not the loneliness, could have prepared me for what happened that Tuesday in October. My name's Leon Carter, and when I found that wallet under a mahogany desk on the 23rd floor, thick with $10,000 in cash, every part of me wanted to keep it. God knows I needed it, but my father used to tell me, "Son, your choices will outlive your luck." So I decided to return it. The address inside was printed on a neat white business card, 4782 Maple Grove Lane. That meant nothing to anyone else, but to me it was like seeing a ghost. That was my childhood home, the place I hadn't seen since I was 8 years old. The day my mother left and Dad said we were never going back, I almost didn't drive there. My hands were shaking the whole time. But curiosity's a powerful thing when you've got nothing left to lose. When the door opened, I felt the air leave my chest. The man standing there looked exactly like me, only older, tired, with gray streaks in his beard and the same scar above the right eyebrow. He blinked, went pale, and grabbed the door frame like he was staring at a ghost. "Dear God," he whispered, voice breaking. "Leon, is it really you?" Before I could answer, he said the words that shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. "I'm Caleb, your uncle, your father's twin brother, the one he told you was dead." The wallet slipped from my hand, the money scattering across the porch like leaves in the wind. 30 years of lies, 30 years of silence, came crashing down right there between us. And as I stood staring at the man who wore my face, I realized the truth about my father wasn't buried with him. It had just been waiting for me to come knocking. Most nights, Detroit slept while I worked. At 10 p.m., the city turned into a symphony of flickering lights and echoing footsteps, a world that belonged to people like me. The invisible ones, the ones who cleaned the mess after everyone else went home. I worked the night shift at Meridian Financial Tower, 23 stories of glass and silence. Every night, I pushed my cleaning cart through marble hallways that smelled like lemon polish and ambition. The desks I wiped belonged to people who made more in a day than I did in a month. But I didn't hate them for it. I didn't have the energy left for hate. 3 years ago, I buried my wife. Mara, cancer, the kind that comes fast and leaves nothing but silence behind. Since then, the quiet became my only company. No awkward sympathy, no empty house waiting to remind me what I'd lost. Just the soft hum of fluorescent lights and my old headphones playing. Motown, the music Dad used to love. Dad, Dennis Carter, was a locksmith, worked out of a rusty blue van that smelled like metal and UD-40. His hands were thick and scarred from years of turning keys and fixing locks. He used to ruffle my hair every morning before school and say, "Work hard, stay honest, and the world can't break you, son." He never talked much about family. No cousins, no uncles, no grandparents. Whenever I'd ask, he'd just say, "We're all we need, Leon." And I believed him. He died 5 years ago, a heart attack at his workbench, still holding his favorite lockpick set. The paramedics said he went quick, no pain. I hope they were right. His funeral was small, 6 people counting me. No one from the past showed up. No one even knew he had a son. After that, I just existed. No more plans, no more dreams. Just clock in, clean, go home, sleep. The janitor's life is quiet, too quiet sometimes. But it gave me something I didn't realize I'd lost, peace. That Tuesday night in October started like any other. I ate cold leftover spaghetti in the break room while Jerry from maintenance complained about his ex-wife, and Marin showed off pictures of his new grandson. At 9:30, my supervisor, Vince, called in sick, coughing so hard I had to hold the phone away from my ear. When I hung up, I remember looking at the building's clock, 9:41 p.m., right before heading up to the 23rd floor, the floor where I'd find that wallet. I had no idea that a small leather rectangle left under a mahogany desk would unearth the one thing my father spent his entire life trying to hide. By the time I reached the 23rd floor, the building felt like a tomb. The kind of silence that hums in your ears and makes you think you can hear your own heartbeat. My cart's wheels squeaked every few steps as I moved down the hallway lined with offices that smelled faintly of cologne and printer toner. I'd cleaned that floor hundreds of times. Always the same routine. Empty the bins, wipe the glass desks, straighten the chairs, mop my way back toward the elevator. But that night, something was different. One of the corner offices still had its lights on. The nameplate read, Harper & Wells Investments. Inside, the place looked untouched. Not a single paper out of place, just that polished mahogany desk gleaming under the lamp. I bent to pick up a crumpled coffee cup, and that's when I saw it. A brown leather wallet half hidden beneath the leg of the desk, as if it had been kicked there. When I picked it up, the weight of it surprised me. Thick, heavy. I flipped it open. Credit cards, a business ID, and then a wad of $100 bills so fat it barely fit inside. Later I'd count them, $10,000. I stood there for a long time just staring at it. The bills catching the light like tiny green temptations. My first thought wasn't noble. It was simple. This could fix everything. 2 months behind on rent. The heater in my apartment barely worked. My truck's transmission sounded like a dying animal. $10,000 would mean breathing again. Maybe even a few good nights' sleep. But then I saw something else tucked behind the cash. A crisp business card with an address typed in neat black letters. 4782 Maple Grove Lane. My fingers went cold. That was my old address. The house where Dad and I lived until the night Mom left. I hadn't spoken that street name in 30 years. And suddenly it was staring back at me from a stranger's wallet. I dropped into the office chair, the wallet still open in my lap. My pulse thudded against my throat. What were the odds? Part of me thought it was some kind of cosmic joke. Another part whispered that this wasn't coincidence at all. I looked at the cash again, then at the address. For a moment, I imagined pocketing the money, walking out, pretending I'd never seen any of it. Nobody would know. Nobody ever looks at the janitor. But Dad's voice cut through the noise in my head. The same line he'd said my entire childhood. The locks you pick today decide what kind of man you become tomorrow. With a shaky sigh, I stuffed the wallet into my jacket pocket. All right, old man, I muttered. Let's see where this leads. The city outside was quiet as I stepped into the cold. The street lights blurred through the mist, and I couldn't shake the feeling that every step I took toward Maple Grove Lane was one my father had tried to keep me from taking. The drive to Maple Grove Lane felt like I was slipping backward through time. Every streetlight flashed across my windshield like a memory. I didn't ask to see. Dad teaching me how to ride my bike. Mom laughing on the porch, the night she drove away in the rain. The closer I got, the tighter my chest became. My GPS voice calmly said, "You have arrived at your destination." But my hands were trembling on the steering wheel. The house at 4782 hadn't changed much, at least not from what I remembered. The same white siding, the same maple tree in the yard whose roots used to trip me when I played catch with Dad. But the place looked tired now. Paint peeling, porch light flickering like it couldn't make up its mind whether to die or hold on. I sat in my truck for a full minute, wallet on the passenger seat staring at that front door. The number above it was crooked, just like it used to be. It didn't make sense. Why would the wallet's owner have this address? Why would something from a skyscraper downtown lead me right back to the ghosts? I'd spent a lifetime out running. Finally I got out. The cold night air bit at my neck. The street was quiet, just the rustle of dry leaves scraping across the sidewalk. My boots echoed on the wooden steps as I walked up and raised my hand to knock. The door creaked open before I even touched it. A man stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, with silver in his beard and the kind of eyes that look like they've seen too much. But that wasn't what froze me. It was his face. He looked exactly like me. Not similar, identical. The same sharp jawline, the same tired eyes, even the same scar above the right eyebrow. The one I got at 12 when I fell off my bike and hit the fence. The man's mouth fell open. His hand gripped the doorframe like he needed it to stay standing. "Dear God," he whispered, voice trembling. "Leon?" I couldn't move. Couldn't even speak. "Who are you?" I finally managed, my voice barely more than a breath. Tears welled up in his eyes, and his voice cracked when he answered. "I'm Clifton. Your uncle. Your father's twin brother. The one he told everyone was dead." The world tilted. My knees nearly buckled. I clutched the wallet tighter without realizing it. Uncle, twin brother, dead? Dad never mentioned a brother. Not once, not in 38 years. The man, Clifton, reached out trembling. "He told you I was gone, didn't he?" I couldn't speak. Every sound around us faded. No wind, no rustle of leaves, nothing. Just the thudding in my ears. Then he said something that turned my confusion into pure burning disbelief. "Your father didn't lie to hurt you, Leon. He lied to protect you." He looked past me at the street like he was afraid someone might be watching. "Come inside," he said quietly. "Before someone sees you." For a long second I considered running back to the truck, pretending none of this was happening. But something in his voice, that same gravelly tone my father had when he used to tell bedtime stories, and pulled me forward. I stepped inside. The air smelled faintly of machine oil and something older, like dust and secrets. On the wall hung an old photo, my dad and another man, identical twins grinning in front of a locksmith van. The name Thorn & Thorn Security painted on the side. My pulse hammered as I turned to face him. "You've got 2 minutes," I said, trying to sound steady. "Start talking." He nodded slowly, eyes heavy with something between guilt and relief. "I will, Leon. But once you hear what your father did, and why, you'll never look at him the same way again." Clifton led me into the living room, where the air felt thick with the weight of years. The furniture looked old, well kept but forgotten, like a museum for memories no one visited anymore. He motioned for me to sit. I didn't. I just stood there, gripping the wallet so hard my fingers ached. He sat down slowly, rubbing his hands together like a man about to confess a sin. "Your father and I were identical twins," he started, voice low and careful. "Born 6 minutes apart. We did everything together. School, business. Even fell in love with the same woman once." I didn't say a word. "We started a locksmith company right after high school. Thorn & Thorn Security. We were good, the best, not just at opening locks, but designing them. We even did a few jobs for private clients. High-end safes, panic rooms, custom vaults. People trusted us." He leaned forward, eyes fixed on the floor. "Then one day we got an offer that changed everything. A man came to us, said he represented a wealthy investor who needed a specialized vault. One that couldn't be cracked, not by anyone. The money was insane, enough to set us up for life." He looked up at me, his eyes glinting. "Your father wanted to walk away. He said something about the man didn't feel right. But I was greedy, Leon. I said yes. I felt a chill crawl up my spine." "What happened?" "The vault wasn't for storing money. It was for hiding evidence, stolen art, smuggled diamonds, you name it. When I found out, it was too late. The man's people found out I'd been talking to the cops." He paused, his hands trembling. "They came after us. Your father got the call first. He showed up at my shop in the middle of the night, told me to pack and run. We barely made it out alive. But when the smoke cleared, he made a choice that saved my life. And destroyed his." I could hear the old wall clock ticking, loud as a hammer. "He faked my death," Clifton said finally, his voice cracking. "Told everyone I died in that fire. Changed my name, helped me disappear. He said it was the only way to keep both of us safe, especially you." I swallowed hard. My throat felt dry. Safe from what? Clifton looked up, his face pale. "From the people still looking for what we built. That vault we made, they never found what was inside. And the man who owned it died in prison 25 years ago. But his sons, they're still searching. And if they find me, or learn who you are, they'll finish what their father started." The words hit me like a gut punch. I thought about Dad's van, the long nights he spent at the workbench, the calls he'd take outside, his sudden mood swings before his heart gave out, the stories that never added up. He hadn't just been a locksmith. He'd been living with a secret that could have gotten us both killed. Clifton reached into a drawer and pulled out a small, worn notebook. He slid it across the table. "Your father left this for you," he said quietly. "Said I should give it to you if you ever found me. Said you'd know when it was time." I opened it slowly. The pages were filled with blueprints, codes, sketches of locks, and a list of names I didn't recognize. But one page stopped me cold. It was a map. And right under it, in Dad's handwriting, there were 5 words. "Don't trust the man upstairs." My head shot up. "What does that mean?" Clifton's face turned grim. "It means your father knew someone was watching you, Leon. Someone close. Maybe even inside your building. The wallet, it wasn't lost. It was bait." The room suddenly felt smaller. All the air seemed to vanish as I realized something terrifying. The wallet wasn't meant to be found by anyone. It was meant to be found by me. And whoever wanted me to find it knew exactly who I was. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The room felt like it was tilting, the air heavy with old secrets and cigarette smoke. The words on that page, "Don't trust the man upstairs," kept echoing in my head like a whisper I couldn't shut off. I stared at Clifton. "You're saying someone's been watching me?" "All this time." He nodded slowly. "Not just watching, waiting." Before I could ask what he meant, a noise cracked through the silence, a faint creak from the ceiling above us. Both of us froze. Clifton's eyes darted upward, his face suddenly pale. He reached for a small revolver hidden under a stack of papers on the coffee table. "Stay quiet," he mouthed. We both listened, the air thick enough to taste. Another step, slow, careful, deliberate. There really was someone upstairs. He motioned for me to move toward the back hallway. My pulse pounded in my ears as I followed him, trying not to make a sound. Every floorboard betrayed us with a groan. We stopped at the base of the staircase. Clifton raised his gun, his hand trembling but steady enough to mean business. He mouthed, "On three. 1, 2. Before he could reach 3, a door slammed open upstairs, and heavy footsteps thundered down. "Go!" Clifton barked. We bolted for the back door just as a man in a black coat appeared at the top of the stairs, silhouetted against the dim light. He shouted something I couldn't make out. Then the deafening crack of a gunshot shattered the air. The bullet splintered the doorframe inches from my head. Clifton fired back twice, wild, desperate shots, and then shoved me through the kitchen. "Run, Leon, move!" We stumbled out into the backyard, the cold October air biting at our lungs. My boots hit the wet grass as another shot rang out. Clifton spun, returning fire, then yelled over his shoulder, "Get to the truck!" I didn't think. I just ran. By the time I reached my pickup parked in the street, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely jam the keys into the ignition. Clifton dove into the passenger seat, breathing hard, eyes wide. "Who the hell was that?" I demanded. He looked at me, chest heaving. "One of them. They must have followed you here." I floored the gas. The tires screamed against the pavement as we tore down the empty road, headlights slicing through the fog. My heart pounded like it was trying to punch its way out of my chest. Clifton pressed a hand against his arm. Blood was seeping through his sleeve. "I'll be fine," he muttered. "Just get us somewhere safe." "Where?" He turned his head toward me, breathing hard. "There's a cabin north of here. A place your father and I built when we were kids." He did something there. Said it would explain everything if I ever... An instant There's nothing. The man who wore my father's face and carried 30 years of silence. I didn't know whether to trust him or throw him out of the truck. But I knew one thing. I couldn't go back to my old life either. Not after tonight. As we sped out of the city, the lights of Detroit shrinking in the rearview mirror, I realized the truth. My father hadn't just been hiding a secret. He'd been fighting a war. And now, whether I wanted it or not, I was part of it. The road to the cabin was nothing but darkness and fog. Trees loomed like ghosts, branches clawing at the truck as we tore down the narrow dirt trail. The clock on the dash glowed 2:37 a.m., and every mile felt like we were driving deeper into another world, one my father had tried to bury forever. Clifton's breathing had slowed, but his arm was soaked in blood. I handed him an old towel from under the seat. "Keep pressure on it," I said. He nodded, eyes fixed on the road ahead. "You're just like him," he murmured. "Stubborn, always moving forward, even when you should turn back." I didn't answer. I was too focused on the faded map in Dad's notebook spread across my lap. A hand-drawn trail, a marked X, and one line scribbled beside it. "Where the lock began, the truth sleeps." 20 minutes later, the trees opened into a clearing, and the cabin came into view, small, sagging under the weight of time, its windows black and hollow. The wind whistled through the pine trees, making the whole place feel alive. We got out quietly. Gravel crunched beneath our boots. The porch steps groaned under our weight, like the cabin recognized us and wasn't sure if it was glad to see us or not. Clifton fumbled with a key around his neck. An old brass one with the initials T&T engraved on it. "Your father made this lock himself," he said softly. "No copies. No way to pick it." He said it was the one thing he could still trust. The key turned and the door creaked open. The smell hit first, dust, wood, and the faint trace of machine oil. Inside, the cabin was sparse, a table, a few chairs, a cot, and the ghost of a life long forgotten. On one wall hung a framed photo of 2 young men, my father and Clifton, standing in front of a half-built vault door, grinning like they owned the world. I turned to him. "What did he hide here?" Clifton limped to the far corner of the cabin and knelt by the floorboards. His fingers traced a pattern, then pressed down on a knot in the wood. There was a faint click. A section of the floor shifted, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a small steel box, no bigger than a toolbox, with my father's initials etched across the top. Clifton lifted it carefully, setting it on the table. His voice dropped to a whisper. He told me what's inside could either save this family or finish what destroyed it. I flipped open the latch. Inside were stacks of old documents, property deeds, bank slips, faded photographs, and a single cassette tape labeled, "For Leon, if I'm gone." My throat tightened. My hands shook as I picked it up. "We need a player," I muttered. Clifton pointed to an old stereo on the shelf covered in dust. I slid the tape in and pressed play. The speakers crackled, then my father's voice filled the cabin. "Leon, if you're hearing this, I'm sorry. I never wanted you caught in this. But if Clifton's with you, that means the past has found its way back." I glanced at Clifton, his face unreadable. "Years ago, your uncle and I built something we shouldn't have. The vault. We thought it was just a job, but inside that vault wasn't money. It was leverage. Evidence that could destroy powerful men. When Clifton tried to make it right, they came after us. I faked his death to keep him safe, but it didn't stop them. They've been watching, waiting, making sure the next generation doesn't open the wrong door." Static crackled through the tape. My father's voice came back, lower, urgent. "The man upstairs, Leon. It's not a person. It's a company, a front. They control everything from the top floors of Meridian Financial, the same building where you clean at night. That wallet you found, that wasn't chance. They planted it. They wanted to see if the Thorns were still alive." My stomach dropped. "They're testing you, son. If you want to survive, burn this tape. Don't trust anyone who says they knew me. Especially not—" The tape cut off. I hit play again, but it just whirred uselessly. The rest was gone. "Especially not who?" I demanded, turning to Clifton. He didn't answer. Just stared at the stereo, his jaw clenched tight. "What aren't you telling me?" He finally looked at me, eyes wet, voice trembling. He was right not to trust me. Before I could react, there was the metallic click of a safety being released. Clifton raised his revolver. "I didn't plan for it to happen this way, Leon. But they promised they'd let me live if I brought them you." The world went still. My own uncle, my father's twin, the man who looked like me, who claimed he owed his life to my dad, was pointing a gun at my chest. For a long, heavy moment, I didn't move. The revolver in Clifton's hand looked steady, too steady for a man. Bleeding and shaking moments ago. The firelight flickered across his face, painting half of him in shadow, half in regret. I could still hear my father's last words crackling through the silence. "Don't trust the man upstairs." And suddenly, it all made sense. The man upstairs wasn't just a company or some faceless threat. It was him. The brother who'd betrayed him once. The brother my father had still saved. "So this is how it ends," I said quietly. "You hand me over to the same people who destroyed you both." Clifton's eyes glistened. "You don't understand, Leon. They never stopped watching. They've got eyes everywhere. The building, your roots, your phone. They said if I didn't bring you in, they'd finish what they started with your father." He took a step closer. The gun didn't waver. "You think I wanted this?" he said, voice cracking. "You think I wanted to pull a gun on my own blood? I just wanted to live long enough to forget all of it." I felt anger rising like fire in my chest, but under it, something colder. Pity. "You could have told me the truth," I said. "We could have ended it together." Clifton shook his head. "No one ends it, not against them. You don't fight men like that, Leon. You survive them." He reached into his coat with his free hand, pulling out a small black device, a GPS tracker. He tossed it onto the table next to the steel box. "They're already on their way," he whispered. "I'm sorry, kid." Then he lowered the gun slightly, and that tiny movement was all I needed. I lunged forward, slamming into him. The gun went off, deafening in the small cabin. Pain seared across my shoulder, but I didn't stop. We crashed into the table, sending the box and the wallet spilling to the floor. The revolver skidded under the couch. Clifton gasped, clutching his side as we both scrambled for it. I reached it first. I pointed it at him, but I couldn't pull the trigger. Not on him. Not on the man my father had once called brother. He looked up at me, coughing, blood on his lips. "You're just like him," he rasped. "Too good for your own damn survival." The sound of engines roared outside. Headlights cut through the cabin windows. At least 2 vehicles, maybe 3. Shadows moved through the trees. Clifton smiled faintly, almost relieved. "Guess we both die where it started." Then his eyes flicked to something on the floor. The cassette tape. Cracked but still intact. He nodded toward it weakly. "Play it again." "The other side." "What?" "The other side," he whispered. "He left you something." The vehicle screeched to a stop outside. I grabbed the tape, shoved it into the player, and flipped it. Static hissed. Then my father's voice came through again, weaker, slower. Leon, if you've come this far, you've already made the choice. I couldn't. The key to everything we built is under the foundation. The truth, the evidence, the money, it's all yours now. But it's not meant for revenge. It's meant for redemption. If Clifton's there, tell him I forgive him. The tape ended with a click. I looked at Clifton. His breathing was shallow, his hand pressed to his wound. He forgave you, I said. Tears slid down his cheek as he whispered. He always was the better man. Then his eyes closed and he didn't move again. The sound of boots hit the porch. I grabbed the steel box, Dad's notebook and the wallet, kicked open the back door, and ran into the woods as bullets shattered the cabin walls behind me. I didn't stop until the sun began to rise, my body shaking, blood drying on my sleeve, the box clutched to my chest. When I finally opened it at dawn, I found what my father had hidden: stacks of bearer bonds, coded ledgers, and a deed to a piece of land worth millions. On the back of one document, written in my father's careful handwriting, were 6 words that felt like they'd been waiting for me my whole life. Build something honest with what's left. That morning, as I stood in the golden light breaking through the trees, I realized the truth. My father hadn't left me an inheritance. He'd left me a second chance, and this time I wouldn't waste it.